Hello and welcome to ICMR NIE's online course on causal inference from observational studies, NISA 201. Welcome back to the topic Logic and Logistics of Cohort Studies. In this session, I'll be talking about the exposure ascertainment. I mean that how to collect the exposure data from the cohort participants. We can use various methods to collect exposure data from cohort members. One of the most cost-effective method is to link the existing registries or health records. The data collection method has evolved depending upon the availability of technology and social norms for interpersonal communication over a period of time. Many early cohort studies collected information by sending paper-based questionnaires to participants and asked them to return by post. Information on the returned questionnaires were then coded and entered into databases. Later, scannable forms with responses that could be read by machine were used, eliminating the need for coding or data entry. Currently, cohort participants can answer questions through internet-enabled web or mobile applications. The studies also collect exposure information by telephonic interview, in-person interviews, or clinical examination, sometimes collection of biological specimens. A national retrospective cohort study it conducted in England assessed the risk of cerebral venous thrombosis, other venous thrombosis, or thrombocytopenia after COVID-19 vaccination. In the study, hospital admissions for a cerebral venous thrombosis or other venous thrombosis or thrombocytopenia were linked to the National COVID-19 Immunization Register. So the records were linked using NHS numbers. So an example for linking the databases or registries or records. In 1948, when Framingham Heart Study was first established, blood samples for assaying blood glucose and cholesterol concentrations, electrocardiograms, chest radiograms, information on smoking, family history, and anthropometric measures were obtained from all cohort participants. Subsequently, the study expanded its scope by including several new anthropometric measurements, lifestyle questions, and biomarkers as shown in this table. During the Second World War, as you all know, atomic bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It provided an opportunity to investigate the long term effects of atomic radiation. So, the lifespan study cohort enrolled around 1,20,000 residents in 1950. The study estimated radiation dose based on the amount of radiation emitted by the bomb, the location of the survivor, and the shielding condition of the survivor at the time of bombing. The study measured outcomes like deaths and cancers from the vital registration or cancer registry. This diagram shows the scheme of radiation released from atomic bombs. So the atomic bomb radiation, it consisted of an initial radiation and the residual radiation. The initial radiation was emitted directly from the fireball, that is the gamma rays and neutrons reached the people on the ground, and the residual radiation was released from activated materials by neutrons and fission products. These fission products went up to high atmospheric layers with the rising air from the fireball, then cooled and condensed, and some fallout fell down with the rain just after the bombings. The rain often contained dust and soot from the fires in the cities, so was called black rain. So the LSS lifespan study cohort members included four groups. All survivors who were located within the 2 kilometer of either hypocenter at the time of the bombings, that is called as inner proximal, and all survivors at 2 to 2.5 kilometer, that is outer proximal, and survivors at 2.5 to less than 10 kilometer who were sex and age matched to the inner proximal survivors. These are called distal survivors. And then people who were not in either city, that is more than 10 kilometer of the hypocenters at the time of the bombings, and they were sex and age matched to the inner proximal survivors, and these were classified as not in the city. The study interviewed all the 20,000 proximal survivors. They identify the location of the survivor at the time of bombing on a map, and they also identified the surrounding buildings and they drew it in a map. And if survivor was inside the house layout was drawn, location and the posture of the survivor was identified. For distal survivors, location at the time of bombing and simple shielding information was collected. The distribution of individual dose estimates in gray unit of the lifespan study participants is shown in this table. Due to complex shielding conditions, individual doses could not be estimated for about 7,000 participants located in large concrete buildings and or bomb shelters in proximal areas. So finally, the study shown in the figure, you can see the spatial distribution of subjects within the dose categories is shown in this figure, and the different dosage categories were shown in different colors in this diagram. The study shows that the challenges in measuring the exposure status of the cohort participants. To sum up, cohort studies, they should have a clear and unambiguous definition of the exposure at the outset, and this definition sometimes involve quantifying the exposure by degree, as we have seen in the lifespan study, rather than just yes or no. Thank you. See you in the next session on outcome ascertainment.